Welcome back, everybody, to the Wild Faith Podcast. My name is Evan Bungham. I have my co-host Luke Timmons with me here today. We are in episode 26, and we have a very, very special episode for you guys. We've got a local fishing legend on the podcast. But before that, we get to introducing who our special guest is. Luke, how you doing?
Good. Just getting back home, and after being up north by you, and we got out fishing, that was good, and so now it's kind of getting back into
reality.
It's been it's what, Monday night here, so it's like it's been a Monday, we'll put it that way. It's a good case of the Mondays.
Oh yeah, no, you gotta love it. It's it's funny, we always talk about the weather, but man, I feel like we got pretty lucky when we were fishing this weekend, but I feel like we live in the tropics. It's been raining almost like every day up north, and we're finally starting to get rain back home. Thank God, because food plots got to grow, man. I know Jake's probably listening to this going, doesn't want it to rain, but I can tell you what, for how dry it's been lately, I think everybody needs it just a little bit.
Yeah, it's getting, you can kind of, it's supposed to start kicking off here, I think 6-7 o'clock. So basically any minute here.
It's gonna be nice though. It looks like it's gonna be in the 70s all week.
Yeah. I mean, I'm
a big buck movement.
Fingers crossed. But yeah, no, you're right. Exactly. I think this storm's gonna, like you said, bring in a little bit of a cold front. So I think you're talking maybe highs in the low 70s, and that's my weather all day long.
Perfect. That's getting the truck and go glass for deer weather.
Yep. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, if it wasn't getting, Jen's got to get groceries here tonight. So if it wasn't going to be raining, I was going to take the boys and do some glassing from the truck. But
nice.
Nah, with the rain, it's like, nah.
Yeah.
I'll sneak out another night.
No, we still have, that's crazy to think that we're less than a month and a half out from bow hunting here. But it's getting down there. It's getting exciting for the farm. We've had a couple nice young 3.5-year-olds show up, but we're still we were talking about before we jumped on, we're still missing we should have
top 3.
3 shooters this year for sure. Shooters this year, that should be, but usually it's about mid-August they pop out, so fingers crossed. It's hard to say. So
it'll be interesting to see, and it's always fun when you start, it's a catch-22. Like, you want to see them,
you want to see
you want to see them. But yet, like we've talked about on here before, it's like, it's not necessarily a bad thing that you don't see them until right before season. So,
well, that's the hard thing, and Sturgis talks about it quite a bit too, unless you got that. And I don't know if we have that farm, or maybe we just suck at hunting, and it's only been 3 years now that
there is that
food plots, but we could suck at hunting. But I think we're getting better and we're figuring things out. Since we've done a whole different mindset change with hunting the farm the way we are now. But you talk about those few percentage farms where you'll have deer year round, I'd rather have my deer show up end of August and stick around all fall than, show them all summer. Then all of a sudden it's like September 16th hits and they're gone. They're coming back here in the rut, but that's it.
Yeah. That was how our old lease was down southeast in Minnesota. And we had giants all summer, and then it was like a switch, like you said, they're gone. And it was even like kind of almost like the week prior to bow opener. So it's like, it wasn't even us going in there and raising hell.
Yeah.
But it's tough. It's fun. And it's like, we've talked about it all year, and it's coming quick, and
it's like Christmas.
It is, yeah. When we're sitting in the shed having a couple beers before Saturday morning for opener, it'll be.
Well, we were just talking about we gotta whack some does, man. We got so many does,
so many. Yeah. It'll be hopefully a nice fruitful opener. We'll put it that way.
I'm surprised, with so the DNR. So update for everybody: go read your reg books, because there is some new stuff that's in there, and once again, we are not giving any legal advice because we are not lawyers. We are not attorneys. Go read your reg books. Do your information on yourselves. But there is some new stuff that's in there this year. And I'm pretty sure our zone, I think we're a 3-deer zone again.
I will be honest. I've looked at the regs for about 30 seconds when you sent me that they got updated the other night, and I haven't looked since just because.
Yeah, I'm pretty sure we're 3 deer, which isn't a bad thing, which I think is good for numbers. But selfishly, it's like you don't want to waste when you've got an opportunity to kill $3.
Yeah, it is a 3 deer limit.
You don't want to waste one on a doe, but that's where it's just like, man, I look at the farm for us. If we could harvest 3 does on opener, that'd be awesome. I think we must have. There's got to be 15 or 20 of them running around right now. And I was saying that before we hopped on too. It's crazy. I just got pictures of fawns that had to literally just drop in the last week. I mean, that's like, I can't remember what the breeding cycle for how many months that does carry their fawns. Because I think it's quicker than 9 months. You have to Google that.
I'll pull her up here quick.
We need a Jamie from Joe Rogan's podcast. Yeah. Jamie, come on, pull that up for us.
Yeah, it's that's kind of interesting because, as far as I think it's roughly 200 days.
200 days.
So,
God, math's hard. How many months is that?
It's like just over 6.5 months or so, roughly.
So that's crazy. I mean, that means and I think of pictures that I've had too,
so they're getting bred.
Let's talk about the second, third rut. That's late. I remember having pictures in January, middle of January, of bucks still chasing does.
Yeah, and I'm not, obviously, neither of us are experts here as far as it goes. But I'm almost wondering with the super mild winter we had. If some of last year's fawns didn't come into a cycle in, late or early, 2024, January, February. And
we still need to find the buck. What we got? We got one buck. I don't know who it is. If it's Hightower, which he's one of the older, he's got to be 6.5 or 7.5 now. It's hard to age him just because he went from about being 145 inch 9 to he was 115 last year. Just lost tremendous amount of mass. But that I don't know if it's that deer or who it is, but we got one deer that ran around, probably bred 8 different does, and we have just goofy genetics. We've got some weird looking deer this year out on the farm. We've got
I don't know what buck was running around, but he had a field day because there's some goofballs,
goofy ones, ones with just these ones got an 11-inch single point club, and the other one's got. So there's some goofy ones, but it'll be fun though. I'm excited. It's gonna be here before we know it.
Oh, absolutely. But kind of going back to fishing and just this past weekend being up north by you, it was a good time. We had
fun.
It was nice
but it was nice to fish.
Oh yeah, yep, exactly. It was nice getaway and good little reset button and before a crazy busy August that I know both of us have. We joked how fast it'll go, but it's gonna fly by because I feel like every weekend we got something going on. You guys got something going on, so it'll be crazy.
It's crazy. It was fun though. We went out and we fished out in Gull, and tell you what, man, I was not expecting. I'm glad we got out in the water when we did because it was busy. We were fishing in and out of people. Parking lot was jam packed with boats, and I would say we did pretty. From what I heard from reports from other people, I feel like we did pretty good. We caught maybe 10 bass and a couple pike, and no giants, but
no.
At least got out and I think we only fished for
we didn't get skunks, so
yeah, that's right.
But no, we had to have been probably one of the first ones out of the launch, and by the time we got back to the landing around 11?
11:30 like that on Saturday.
It was packed full.
Crazy.
And then then we went out Saturday with just with my fam on the pontoon, and it was insane. It was windy, which obviously kind of kept people probably more in the bays and stuff, which whatever. But it was insanely busy on the lake.
Crazy. But, kind of going into that then too, we, like I said, we got a really special guest, and Tim Hanske decided to hop on the podcast with us, and shout out to Tim. Super awesome episode for you guys. Tim is a local legend here in the Brainerd Lakes area. He's a phenomenal fisherman. I've had a chance to film him a couple times working with ABO and with Leisure,
Mm-hmm.
the guide service that he's with. And Tim is an incredible guide. He's an awesome dad. He's a good father. And on top of that, he's just loves to fish, man. He fishes for some of the most unique bites that I know. If it's chasing muskies with the fly rod in the fall, or if it's chasing carp with a fly rod, or if it's fishing for eel pout in the wintertime. You just all these unique bites. But not only that, he's just an awesome dude and a great guide. And yeah, we're excited to bring you this one. So without further ado, let's bring in Tim. Tim, how are you doing today?
I'm good. Just got off the water.
Love it.
Can't beat that.
Love it.
Yep.
Can't beat it.
How'd you do this morning?
It was pretty average, I'd say. We hit probably 9-10 spots in 4 hours, so we were fishing fast and pluck a few walleyes out of each school. And some schools wouldn't bite, so we just said, "See you later," and did okay. Had fun.
Nice. And is it how is the weather up by you guys? Are you guys getting smacked by the rain too?
It's sprinkling a little bit. It's perfect fishing weather, and it's way better than 90 and flat calm and humidity through the roof. So it's beautiful.
Where are you at right now?
Right now I'm at my camper on Leech. I live in Brainerd.
Nice.
So only an hour south, but I spend about half my summer up here and half back home. So, which is great.
Love it.
I get to fish my favorite lakes. So.
Perfect.
Would you say what would if you had to pick your favorite lake within we'll just say an hour of the Brainerd Lakes area, what are you picking?
Depends on the month, but I would have to say if I could flip a coin, it'd either be Mille Lacs or Leech. Those are my
love it. Big
even
bodies.
When I was a little kid, like they were my favorite lakes, and it didn't start off that way because of fishing. I actually fell in love with the big waves out there. And when I was really little, but all our lakes around here offer so much. It was a great place to be born in. Put it that way. If you like fishing,
I love it. Yeah. And kind of going off of the intro that we brought in, Tim, you are a fishing nut. We like to talk all the time that like I'm a turkey hunting nut. Like you just love fishing, and you love fishing for all sorts of different species, but we wanted to bring you on today, kind of doing through a gamut of a lot of stuff, but just kind of maybe walk us in kind of through the beginning, just like the introduction of who you are. Obviously, you're with which guide service you're with, how you kind of got into fishing, and we'll just kind of go from there.
Sure. Well, I was born and raised in Baxter, Minnesota. Grew up in a fishing family. Grew up on a lake, and so those pieces started to align quite early. My father was still is, but very avid fisherman. He loved learning about the fish up here. He was born in the cities and moved up here for his first job, and so then I was born, and he took us fishing all the time. We'd fish off the dock. We'd fish.
I love it.
On our lake. We'd go places, and just that thrill of the chase, casting a line out and being like, anything could bite it. As a little kid, that was really cool to me. And I think that's where that multi-species thing comes into play too. Like, I didn't care if it was a perch. I didn't care if it was a northern, like whatever bit my line was cool to me. So I kind of took that and, went through middle school and high school, still fishing all the time. And it just became a huge obsession of mine that keeps growing. It seems like it hasn't faded at all. But when I was 18, I had a guide in the area. Royal Carls is his name. He gave me my first crack at guiding. And at the time, I had no desire to be a fishing guide. Didn't really know. Like, I'd see those guys all the time, be like, oh, those guys are cool. They have the coolest boats. They have the coolest trucks. Like, they get to fish and get paid. But that's about all I knew about it. And Royal called me one day. I was actually out muskie fishing. And he's like, hey, he got my name from a family friend. And he was like, I heard you like to fish and you're a good guy and all this stuff. I'm like, yeah, I can check those boxes. And he's like, well, we got a huge corporate trip and I need some more boats. He's like, would you want to try guiding? I'm like, yes, I do. I've always been a door opener. Like, and once you hear the rest of my story, that is my life. So I showed up and I remember launching with my dad's boat, my dad's rods, like everything. And I pull up to the dock. I'm looking around. I'm like, oh my gosh, I'm way out of my league. Like these are all the big name guys. And here's this 18-year-old, like, you know, when you're 18, you think you're pretty good at stuff. But at that point I knew I was the least experienced one there. And so I was really nervous, and I don't get nervous that often, but we went out and caught a bunch of bass, and it went good. Royal talked to my guys, and they're like, yeah, he was great. And then he told them it was my first guide trip ever. They're like, what? so that helped a little bit. And then Royal started giving me a few more trips, and then it kind of went into pedal to the floor after that. I got in with another guide service named Dan Eigen, Walleye Dan's guide service. Great guy, great operation he runs. Spent many years with them. They treated me super well. And then I had the opportunity to join the guide team I'm with now, and that's Leisure Outdoor Adventures. That was in 2012, I think. And that allowed me to kind of peel off some of that cover and kind of really get into my own groove of fishing. And I really got to fan out, which I needed. I was trapped on Gull Lake a lot. And I say trapped because I love that lake, but I also don't like that lake on weekends and busy days. And it just is chaotic out there. It's a phenomenal fishing lake, still is. It's probably even better than it was back then, to be honest with you. And so now I get to fish Leech all the time. I spend a lot of time on Mille Lacs, a lot of time on Gull, a lot of time on whitefish. So I'm pretty lucky. I think that often. So it's been a crazy ride. It's hard to think that it's been 20 plus years of doing it. So.
Oh, it's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, I can attest to we were just up on Gull Lake last weekend, and it was crazy busy.
I got to the landing. Was that on Saturday? Were you guys out there?
Yep.
Yeah. Yep. I got to landing at 7 a.m. I started at 8. I'm like, why are there so many trailers? I knew it was going to be busy, but they had a big bass tournament yesterday out there, and there was bass boats on every spot.
Bass Masters.
Yeah. Those guys are coming to Leech middle of August. So
nice.
There's some open up here. They can't pre-fish anymore, but they were out like crazy last week. So
it was nuts. I think we got our boat in at like, I think 5:15, and by like we drove by again at like, I forgot my phone, but by 6:30 when we went back to go grab my phone, the parking lot was completely full.
Yeah.
It was like, what?
Gull gets a little wild in July and August. June, it's not terrible, but July and August are busy ones out there. Especially it's even busier than it's ever been before. There's so many rental pontoons, and
for sure.
The fishing's still good. So,
kind of going off of that, and that's such an awesome, intro story to how you got into guiding. And you said it too, you're a multi-species fanatic, whatever wants to bite your line. But maybe walk us through a little bit, because you do a lot of unique fishing, I would say, when it comes to fly fishing for muskies, chasing, pout in the wintertime when no one else is really, targeting them. Like, what are some of those unique bites that you really like to fish?
Those are probably the two biggest ones. Once in a while, you'll see me with a 8-foot step ladder in the bow of my boat chasing carp in the spring with the fly rod.
Nice. That's awesome.
But yeah, where? Gull, Mille Lacs, if you can time it right, it's.
I would not have guessed there was carp out there.
It's super fun, but the timing of it is the tricky part. Like, they're up there for maybe a week, but I used to fish a lot down in the Florida Keys, And
cool.
it's exactly like that. Like when you're sight fishing for tarpon or bonefish, it's exactly like that. Like they're way up shallow in these shallow sand flats, and you're calling them out and you're casting ahead of them. It's super fun. But
so you got a ladder in your Ranger.
Yeah. Well, not all the time, but yeah, we get some pretty funny looks. And you're up in like 2 feet of water, and I'm on the bow telling like cast over this way. Oh, there's a bunch over here. It's wild, but that's one of those things that if you time it right, it's really fun. And if you don't, you'll see like a few here and there, and then you just go catch smallmouth or something. So, but yeah, the eel pout bite's been fun. That one we kind of went full speed on about 10 years ago, I'd say. We'd always used to catch them after dark ice fishing. You'd be like, oh, and I loved it. Like I loved catching eel pout. They fight hard. They're big. And then a couple of years went by and we're like, oh, we could probably target these. And so we would get out when the walleyes would stop biting and just catch eel pout. And it was really easy for a lot of years. And now it's getting a little tougher. And I don't know why that is. The fish are still all over the place, but to get them to actually bite the last few years has been a little trickier. So
interesting.
It's like muskie fishing until the spawn. You might catch 1 to 4 a night, but they're usually like big ones. And so you're going out there, and we never fish out of a house. It's always on the ice, just in whatever Mother Nature gives us that night. You're bopping around, and it's fun. It's just a way to change it up and do something different. So
yeah, no, that's awesome. Love that.
It's always I like to. I've never been a person who bases my love for fishing or success of fishing off of what I catch. To me, it's about the experience. And if I'm, and this isn't so much guiding, like this is my personal fishing.
Yeah.
If I go out there and catch nothing, but I got to throw like a bunch of different baits and maybe I hooked one on a new technique or something, then I'm happy. I'm like, that was fun. Like I got to interact with fish. I learned something, either positive or negative. Like you're always learning.
Yeah.
And to me, that's cool. I like to always have an open mind. Every day when I start on the water for a guide trip, we start with what has been working, but there's 10 other rods tied up. And if I see a school of fish that doesn't want to bite, it's like, hey, throw this at them, throw this at them, throw this at them. And then if they don't bite that, we just keep moving. But it's that constant drive to find what makes these fish bite is probably deep down. If you peeled off all the cool things about fishing, that's probably my favorite thing is just trying stuff and seeing what's working. So
I love that. And I feel like that's like the evolution of like a good fisherman, because, you think of some of the old timers that are out there that, they'll live and die by jigging for walleyes. Yep. And that's all they'll do is jig for walleyes. And they don't catch them jigging, and that's it.
They weren't biting that day.
They weren't biting that day, but they didn't open their mind to, maybe they were suspended 15 feet in deeper water, like different techniques that might have worked better. So that's where I commend you for that, because that's a hard trait to be willing to, not catch anything, but try something different to learn something new.
It's really easy to get stuck in ruts in anything in life. And I don't like that. And as I get older, I'm 40 now, so I'd like to think I'm a little wiser. But instead of going out there and being like, they only bit this yesterday, so we're only going to grind away at this. And sometimes that's the way to do it, because they're just not biting well. But my boat is so full of tackle, it's horrible. And it's just constant, like jigging a crawler, jigging a leech, jigging a bobber, jig wrap, whatever you throw at them is. And, that way I feel like I'm doing my job because I'm trying to crack the puzzle that day. And every day it's a puzzle. And some days you roll up and it's like, it's game on right away. And those days are easy, but most days is not like that. People think as guides, we whack fish every day, and that's not true. Like we have to work hard, but we're the educator part of fishing. And And to do that, like, we need to know all the technique, or this is my theory on guiding. People do it all different, but I like to be trying the kitchen sink, as they say. And if like we don't catch them that day, at least people know, like, we threw a lot of different stuff at those fish and only caught, 10 of them or whatever. So I can go to bed at night being like, I burned a ton of gas. I throw a bunch of different baits, and that's what we came up with today. So, yeah,
that's awesome.
And fishing tournaments too. I think I fished my first one when I was 16, and you learn real fast, even on tough bite tournaments. There's 100 boats or whatever. There's always 5 boats that catch fish, or 10 boats that catch fish, or half the field catches fish. Mm-hmm. So that tells you right there that they're always biting somewhere. It's just, you gotta find them.
That's true.
So,
well, I mean, that was like us on Saturday. Like, we struggled for maybe that first hour, and then we kind of moved around, tried new spots, tried some new things. All of a sudden we found out that, these bass were out suspended in like 12 to 15 feet of water on weed edges, rather than being uptight, shallow in the weeds. Yep. And, it just took I mean, we tried every lure that I had in my tackle box, which is just about this big. Yep. Don't have that much, but that's awesome.
Yeah, it's always, if you get stuck in the rut, guiding's a job. I don't care what anybody says. I've been doing it for a long time. It's a job. Like, you're mm-hmm. up early. If you're doing it right, you're working really hard most days. And for like a 4-hour trip, you can probably put 2 hours of work on each side of that. And, between retying rods, and I like to keep my boat really clean, and just being ready. And so getting ready for the job every day. And the biggest thing is bouncing back after a tough bite. Like, you can't dwell on the past. You just got to, like, I tell my customers, I'm like, I'm the eternal optimist. Like, every school we see, that's going to be the school that bites. And if it's not, the next one is. And people are like, you weren't kidding. And I'm like, I know, you have to be that way. If you let it get to you and you're like, oh, I didn't catch him today, like, why is that fun? It's not fun. It happens to the best. Look at the last NWT on Green Bay. Like, the first day, half that field zero. And a lot of the big names, caught one fish. And they were working really hard for those bites. So you can't compare numbers or whatever. And, some days we beat everybody, and other days we get beat. So it's just kind of part of the game. And I'm a competitive person, and I'm not saying it doesn't bug me, but I don't let it wreck my attitude. So.
Oh, no, that's good.
You kind of alluded to it a little bit there, but what would you say is the most difficult part about being a guide? And then on the flip side, what's the most rewarding?
The most difficult part, I would say, is the easy one right now is getting the right bait. Like, maybe not so much this year, but that's kind of a joke. Bait is always a stressful part. But you
couldn't get shiners last year.
Yeah, the best minnows, and but honestly, it's trying to keep up with people's expectations, I would say. I tell people sometimes that this isn't Canada. Like, we're not going to catch 100 walleyes in a half day. And July and August has always been the dog days of summer around here. And you have to work a little harder to catch walleyes most days, just because there's so much food out there. The fish are hot, and they're in the weeds. They're out of the weeds. They're moving around a lot. And so you get sometimes people who want to catch like 1 million fish, and I want that too. But sometimes you just got to kind of level out expectations and be like, for this area, we did pretty good today. We kept 10 walleyes in 4 hours. That's pretty good for beginning of August. So that's probably the part that we wrestle with quite a bit. And when I say we, that's pretty common throughout most guides I know.
Sure.
there's so many rewarding things about the job though. Watching someone catch their first fish, watching someone catch their first biggest fish. I love taking kids fishing. It's just super fun, especially kids who like don't get to fish very much.
Yeah.
And it's not just about the fishing, you know, they're like, ooh, this boat's fun. They're like, oh, look at the balloon over there. Look at
the experience.
It's the experience. And one thing that's really helpful for me is to remind myself that like I get to do it every day. I could literally be on the water every day fishing. The last couple of years, I'm taking a few more days off, take my boys out and just kind of chill a little bit. And, but that day that I have people in my boat, that might be their one day of the year to go fishing. And it's not cheap because fishing's not cheap anymore. Like we have big fancy boats, gear is expensive, baits, gas and everything. And so I literally tell myself each day as we're pulling out, I'm like, this is their special day. Like you have to make it their special day, whether it's a great fishing day, stuff's biting, whether it's tough. Like I want them to remember this day because they fished with me. So with that outlook, it's really helped me work harder, I think, and just be the best I can be. And so that's how people always ask, like, oh, how do you like charge these people this amount of money? And then some days, you know, we might catch up here, you know, 4 or 5 walleyes for a half day. And I'm like, you know what? I went down swinging. that's what I can, that's what I can live by. So, and a lot of days when you put in that work, you finally come across the right school and it works out. So, but some days it doesn't, and that's fishing. So
that's fishing. That's right.
Yeah, my favorite times are when people are just enjoying the whole experience and to see what that does for family, see what that does for friends, coworkers, whoever's in my boat that day, just to watch like the whole thing come together and be like who's the guy in an orchestra conductor, be the conductor of that experience is really cool. It's a really cool feeling. So that's
awesome.
That's what I like about it. Yeah,
definitely.
And I think people, you know, and I think people take it for granted.
Yep.
Until you've, you know, I've had the pleasure of working with you and working with some other people from Leisure and just kind of being around that guiding experience. And which is kind of funny is because when I was introduced to all that, you know, my fishing experience was same as what you're talking about for like people that you would guide, where growing up as a kid, we would get 2 trips a year to go up fishing. And that was it. Like both Luke and I grew up in southeastern Minnesota, and Mauer and Dodge County were two of the 2 counties in Minnesota that don't have lakes, you know? So, which is so sad. But I think people take for granted how much work you guys put in, you know, not just when you're out taking people out. It's the prep work before, it's cleaning the fish afterwards, it's getting your boat cleared out at the end of the night and all that stuff. But for you, how do you balance all that with, you know, with family life and just life in general, and then just making sure that you're prepped and have the right, you know, like you said, you're an eternal optimist. I feel like I'm the same way, of how you can keep that attitude going, you know, like even like when you said when days get hard, you know, like how do you juggle all that?
I don't really know, but I do know that fortunately I was raised by hard workers. And so I know nothing different than whatever I'm doing. Doesn't matter. If I'm doing like a chore at the house, you do it right the first time and you do your best work. And that's like how I was raised. Like, just be a hard worker and things will work for you. And so, you know, that's part of it, is just when you're fishing every day, and like when I get home, my family knows, and my wife is a huge part of this. She's, you know, got the boys right now back home, and our boys are a couple of them are in their teens and one's still 6. So there's a lot going on. They're busy.
Yeah.
And, having that support from even my parents will go over there and take a kid for a little bit. And without that support, I think it would be a lot more challenging. But when I get home, like I go right into dad mode, and I don't.
Love it.
If the kids they'll ask me about fishing, and they love to fish, and so they want to know. But I'm not gonna bore them to death about my day if they don't want to hear about it. I'm invested in them and what they want to do, and it's just kind of flipping those switches. Like I go from fishing guide mode, get all my stuff taken care of, ready for the next day, and then I go to dad mode, and it's pretty easy for me because I love being a dad. So, but yeah, and then I'm a teacher as well. I could tell that whole story of how that happened, but I'll start my 9th year teaching this fall, and
that's awesome.
So then September is like crazy because it's guiding on the weekends, and then it's coaching hockey, and then it's teaching, and then it's like whatever else is going on. So, but I would get in trouble. What's the saying? Idle hands, whatever. And that saying fits me perfect because I don't do well sitting around. So I like to be busy.
So when's your downtime?
Usually about 9:30. Then I go to bed.
All year.
But yeah, when I'm up here, like I just fished in the morning, and I'll usually go back out, and I might not even fish, but I'll be looking with my graphs to find new fish, or I usually do end up fishing because I can't not. But honestly, that's when I learn the most, is when I'm by myself. There's no expectations. I can do whatever I want to do. So I'll go look at weird spots, or maybe I saw a pod when we were fishing pot of walleyes when we were fishing muskies over here. So I'll go check those out. I really like to fish smallmouth bass, and so a lot of times I'll go play with those guys.
Always fun.
And so my downtime usually consists of fishing. if it's applicable.
That's good. So, hey, you love fishing.
I do. I can't explain it. It wasn't really by choice. I just kind of fell into it, and it's been a thing my entire life. So I'm lucky I get to get paid for it. So
do you have any other hobbies you would say outside of fishing that like you would like enjoy to go do if you had time off?
Yeah, I love golfing. I played golf all the way through college. Now I've golfed twice this year, so that's pretty good for me. So nice. I'll probably hit 4 or 5 rounds this year. But my boys like to golf, and my wife likes to golf, so we try and do that.
I think I played against your brother in men's league a couple of times back in the day.
He's a champ. I will say officially that he's better than me at golf. He's my younger brother. He's much better than me at golf. But yeah, it's fun. I really appreciate times when I can just chill. Like I love sitting on the deck at sunset and just sitting and looking in the woods. And I never used to be that way, but I like to just have a little chill time and just take in the evening. And but yeah, it's not, work is a term that I use for guiding because it is a job, and it's not just going fishing. It's a lot more than that. But when you do get to go fishing every day and your lake's your office, like it's not hard to get up at 4:45 every day and go do it again. So at least for me, I still love it as much as I did when I jumped in head first. So
what is your season dates usually? Like when will you start guiding? Because I can't remember with leisure and you guys aren't doing ice fishing. It's all open water, right?
Yeah. So when I was full time doing it for my only income, I would fish whenever anybody wanted to fish, whether it was whether it was spring crappies, whether it was super late fall muskies, anything in between there. And then for many years, me and his name's Jay Cheney, we did fish houses together, and we just we kind of mutually decided to sell those fish houses because like I was gone almost every weekend for hockey, his daughters are skiers, and we're kind of like, hey, this was a great run. It was fun.
Yep.
Ice fishing guiding is not as fun as open water guiding, but because I'm a mover, like I want to move. If they're not biting, I want to keep going. And so we kind of talked over the phone in the summer and decided to be done with that part of our career. So this was the first winter in many where I didn't have to run out to fish houses on the weekends, which I missed it, which is shocking to say because I like ice fishing. I don't love it. It's cold and it's
ice.
Like in
February, it's a lot of work.
January. Yeah, and the way I like to do it, I love it if I can go out on the lake, drill a bunch of holes, and hop around and be moving, like hunting down fish.
Yeah.
I don't like sitting there going, when are they going to come through? Like I like to be out looking for them. So once we get to that, eelpout fishing is great for that. We never set up a house. It's fishing out of the truck or on the ice. You can literally reel up, put your graph in, and you're gone to the next spot. So that's part of where I fell in. And eelpout fishing too, I could put the kids to bed and then go out and fish till like 11 or something. And so that was nice too. But yeah, and nowadays I would say I guide up until the end of September. And then I don't put my big boat away, but I really use my little boat for smaller lakes and rivers. And that's all personal fishing. That's kind of when.
Yeah. Well, you do a lot of fall fishing, don't you, on your own personal side?
I fish a lot in the fall. It's my favorite time of year. So. Yeah.
Nice. So you're not a big. Do you hunt it all then too, or no?
I tried to be a waterfowl hunter, geese and ducks. And every time I was like, I wish I had a rod in my hand. And I liked it. Like, it was fun. But I wanted to be out there trying to catch things with fins. But and part of that too is my buddy who would take me all the time. Like, I didn't have any of the stuff, and I didn't grow up in a hunting family. Like, all we did was fish, which is I'm the product of that, I guess. And but my buddy moved away and he took all his duck stuff with him. And I'm like, well, Tim, you're at a crossroads right now. Like, do you jump in and buy all the stuff, or do you just kind of go back to fishing? And that was an easy choice for me. So
that's funny.
I do enjoy hunting. I love sitting out in a field for geese or on the water for ducks. I loved walking through the grouse woods, but I love fishing more. So
hey, more power to you. That's awesome.
Yep.
So with the fall, kind of doing more, of like a personal, your own kind of fishing, because you're not probably as guiding as too much, correct?
Yep. Yeah. End of September is my last guide trip, and then October and November are all just me. So with that, yeah, right. So with the those 2 months, I mean, how much, obviously that's probably a good reset, for you as far as kind of tailing off from the busy summer. So where do you kind of, or how do you, obviously within those 2 months you're doing tons of fishing, but where do you kind of get that time? And how does that help with you just across the board, is finding that kind of just that that reset, that renewal of finding that peace kind of out fishing in the outdoors? Yes. So, and these are all things I never realized, when I was younger, but the outdoors in general is super important for my mental health. Like, I have to be outside as much as, whether it's winter or fall, whatever season. Outside is my reset button, like you said. And my teaching job is very intense. I work with students who have very big behaviors sometimes, and a lot of times it's, physical aggression and lots of verbal aggression. And so to kind of balance that out, like I have to be outside, and my wife knows that too. There's times where she'll just be like, just go. I'm like, what do you mean? She's like, just go fish. And so like, she knows that it's getting to me. And so that outdoor piece is critical in my life. And I would like to instill that into my boys too, because I think, what I see is kids are too glued to screens and too glued to video games, and they're just not experiencing the world. And that's, to me, they have a false reality of like, I'm the best video gamer. Okay, there are some jobs that you can transfer those skills, and I'm not saying like YouTube's a real thing now. People make money off of YouTube, and so I never shoot them down. But I'm like, you need to get out and see the world. Like, there's some pretty cool stuff you can do outside, and even with my own children, like they want to watch TV. I'm like, nope, whoop. Get out there, go in the woods, go get scratches, go break stuff, whatever. Like, go get lost for a little bit. And I think that outdoor drive for humans is really crashing. And so, and I get to share that with people. There's so many people who don't fish, and then they jump in my boat or any guide boat, and they're like, whoa, this is pretty fun. And then all of a sudden they're buying a boat, and then they have the stuff, and then I get a call like 5 years later. They're like, you wouldn't believe what we just caught. I'm like, that is super cool, because it started, in a day with me. So
that's cool.
Each day is different, and I love it. My personality is perfect for guiding, because structure I struggle with, but as a teacher, like, structure is really important. So I've had to adjust myself a little bit, but just going out there and seeing what nature throws at you that day, it's super fun. So yeah, it's I don't know where I would be without being able to step outside and get fresh air. I would lose my mind. I know that.
Yeah, 1,000%. No, it is so true. And I mean, you talked about it with your own kids, and I obviously with just being up north this past weekend and coming home yesterday, it's like, you just see, when you're, during the week, right, you're doing the same old, and then you get, time at, few hours at night to be outside and play with your kids, or the weekend and stuff. But when you get those those long weekends, like last weekend for us, where it's like, our kids were outside playing the beach all day. We were out on the boat doing all sorts of things. There's no fighting. There's no why. It's just like so much. And like you said, there's so much good that comes from just kids playing outside, getting dirty, getting scratches, and just being kids. Because it's like, exactly. And I think that's an important message too, to just push for everybody. Is just like, your kid doesn't need to be a hunter, a fisher, or a man or a woman or whatever. Just get them outside though. Get them going, and it's like, we got our oldest is 4, and he'll start preschool here in about a month, and it'll be an outdoor based preschool.
Oh,
and
nice.
We're both just,
awesome.
We're both just like, my wife and I are just like, this is going to be perfect for him. Cause like when he's out, like anything outside, he'll dig it in the dirt, going with me to, hang, trail cameras or to the archery range and stuff. It's just, I think if more people took the time, like you said, to get outside and just get that hard reset, there'd be a lot less BS in the world.
Yeah.
To put it simply.
Well,
it's true.
What advice do you have for maybe young dads that are out there? Because obviously it sounds like you had a great upbringing, and, kudos to your dad and your mom for kind of pushing that on you at a young age of, it was like the same thing that my dad did. He was like, just go explore the woods, like get the hell out of here and just go enjoy it. But like, what advice, cause like you said, a lot of people aren't in a situation where they do have a boat or they do have lake access or what that is. But like, what advice would you give for like some young parents that get their kids enthralled in the outdoors?
I think, and I get asked this question quite a bit. To me, so let's say like you love walleye fishing, right? And, a lot of guys only fish for walleyes. Everybody who's fished for walleyes know that it's not generally hot and heavy fishing. Can be, for sure. But generally it's like you're catching a couple an hour, let's say. So if you're a 4-year-old with an attention span of 2 minutes, is that going to be a way to like instill instill that love for something bending the rod? I don't think so. But, you know, I started with my boys. They were super little, probably too little. Probably shouldn't even say this, but they were in car seats, you know, in the boat, no life jacket. And we're like, is this legal? We're like, I don't know. And you know, tiny little push button rod, catch a sunfish this big. And it's the coolest thing they've ever done at that point in their life.
For sure.
And they're like, this is amazing. It's wiggling. And so we started there. We started with rock bass and sunfish and just stuff that likes to bite. And then you catch an incidental bass or pike, and that's like the highlight. My 6-year-old still talks about a pike he caught when he was 3. Like it was not, to me, it was a hammer handle. It was like a 28 incher.
Yeah.
And he still thinks that's the coolest thing he's ever caught. So, which he's been very fortunate to catch quite a few pretty cool fish. But his favorite fish are still rock bass, and he still talks about that pike. So
rock bass, interesting.
He loves rock bass, loves them.
Nice.
But you know, if you don't have access to some of that stuff, just it takes time and effort as a parent, and you need to put in that time and effort, and that's on you. Like your kids aren't going to be like, hey, let's go for a hike today. They're not going to think about that, but you have to be like, hey, and then you have to go through the whining and the crying and getting dressed and loading them up in the car. But after a while, like those routines, they're going to ask you to want to do that stuff. And, you know, you have to teach whoever it is. It could be an older adult that, you know, doesn't know the outdoor life that well. Whoever it is, you just have to teach them, like, it's a lot of work, but the work you put in is, the reward is amazing. And so, you know, just, I tell people all the time, I'm like, start super simple, go out for an hour. And if they're not biting, pull the plug, say, oh, today's not the day. And, I took my boys a lot to Mille Lacs, which Mille Lacs in June is like, if you want to go learn how to catch walleyes, it's a pretty easy place to go catch walleyes. And I had a moment one time, I was like, Tim, what are you doing? Like, this is not the reality of fishing walleyes. And because my boys were just bobbers down.
Yep.
And I'm like, uh-oh. And I tell my boys every time, I'm like, this is not typical
That's not
for walleye fishing. And they're like, oh, that was awesome. Let's go do it again. And so, you know, and then, you know, we had some slow days, and they're like, what's going on? I'm like, this is fishing. Like, we're working for these bites.
Yeah.
And, you know, they really fell in love with that part too. So it's great. And now my middle boy is a psychotic muskie fisherman. And so,
oh boy,
which
good luck with that.
I know the road he's going down, and I keep telling him, like, dude, it's a slippery slope. But he loved it. So he will put in the time, and he's hooked a few. He's not landed one yet, and he's totally fine with that. So it's, you know, just
muskie fishing's a fun one.
It is. I always say you either love it or you don't ever want to do it again. So I love, like, that's what I do all fall pretty much. I'll fish walleyes once in a while, but muskies are my thing from October to the end of December 1st is when the season closes. So
not to go down a crazy different rabbit hole here, but just since you brought it up, I want to hear you. Can you just tell us a little bit about, because I just remember the day of like filming you tying those muskie flies. Just tell us a little bit about fly fishing for river muskies, because I think that's such a cool bite.
It is cool 1% of the time. And then the other percent of the time, you're like, what am I doing? but no, that kind of comes back to that whole thing of, you know, wiggling something I've always loved, which is fly fishing. I remember being 5 or 6 years old, catching sunfish off the dock with my grandpa's bamboo fly rod. And so fly fishing's been in my life pretty much my whole life. And I kind of let it slip away a little bit. And then I got back into it. And I am the person who, when you do something, like, I'm all in, which is why I didn't go down the duck hunting road, because I knew that was going to be something that I'm all in on. I can't not do things partially. And so we did a lot of fly fishing for smallmouth and largemouth and panfish. And then I had heard of a guy kind of catching some muskies on the fly, primarily in the fall. I was like, that sounds really fun. And I had my river boat already, and we went out there for smallmouth quite a bit. And one day, me and my brother, or my neighbor, took me out there, who likes to fish the river too, and I caught one on fly, and I was like, oh okay. So then, I tied flies for a long time, and then I started tying the musky flies. And so back then, I set a goal of catching a 50-incher on a fly that I tied, and I actually broke that goal. I think it was 15 years to the date.
Crazy.
It took me 15 years to get a 50-incher on one of my flies. And since then, it's just kind of spiraled out of control. Like my brother goes with me most of the time, and it's not even a question. Like if we're going on the weekend, doesn't matter the weather.
Yeah,
we just go, and it's super fun. So it's a lot of downtime casting and just retrieving flies in, and you're throwing these giant flies out. But it's pretty special. We're starting to figure it out now where we can get them pretty consistently, I'll say. At least get one to bite. Landing them's a whole different ball game, but
that's awesome. Yeah, I gotta come out and film you guys doing that. I just think that's such a cool, I don't know. I've only musky fished probably twice in my life. Once up in Canada, never landed one, but we boated, I think 6 or 7 that trip up in Crane Lake, which was incredible.
Yeah, that's a good run.
Yeah. But then, this just, I think it was, oh man, what was this? About a month ago with a buddy of mine out on Alex, and, he's never caught a muskie before. Shout out to Jake. And he landed a bass within 2 seconds. All his lines going, just zizzing out. I'm like, the hell do you got on? And then sure enough, it was muskie chomped the bass and wouldn't let go. And we actually netted this thing. And I don't know, I bet you it's anywhere from 45 to maybe 50. It's hard to say, but netted it. But the net we had in the boat was too small. So this fish got out, still somehow kept that bass in its mouth because he wasn't hooked. And then I think he fought it for another maybe 10 minutes. And then he just kept diving. We couldn't get him in. But it's such a cool experience because that whole day we didn't see anybody else fishing for anything else but for muskies. You just see these guys with giant rods just doing 10,000 casts waiting. And I was just like, well, we hooked up with one in about 3 minutes of fishing. Pretty cool.
It's I don't know what it is about those fish, but I was guiding muskies a couple days ago on Leech, and it was one of those days, the weather was perfect. You couldn't order better weather, and fish just weren't moving. And that's when you have to become Mr. Cheerleader, I like to call it. Keep casting. You can't catch them if they're not in the water. And then I'm going to call him a kid, but he was probably 20. Had never caught a muskie before. Had one blow up his top water. Finally we got one to bite. And it was probably a 44 to 46 incher. So it was a good fish. We got a great look at it.
Sure.
And he didn't set the hook. And so
oh, no.
I was like, that was our one bite for the day. You never know, but they were not super happy that day. And, we had that one bite and we didn't capitalize on it. And then we lost another one right at the end. So that's why those fish drive me crazy. But I think that's part of the reason why I like to fish them so much, because it's you work so hard to get a bite. And nowadays, and I'm not going to go down this road too much, but with forward-facing sonar, there's a new way to fish muskies, and I choose not to do that. But it's a lot easier to catch muskies nowadays than it was without forward-facing sonar. But I like to put in the work. I like you feel that kick on your bucktail, and it's boom! I tricked one, and that to me is really cool about muskie fishing. So. Tricking a very crafty fish.
What is your stance on forward? Oh, for sure. So what is your stance on forward facing sonar? And, I was telling Luke about this when we were out in Gull, and I talk about upgraded technologies. For me, I was telling you before we jumped on, shout out to Brad Height for helping me out get a boat, but finally got my first boat this last year. I'm running been going through that gamut of learning. I always knew how to read down imaging, like regular 2D sonar, but learning how to read like mega down imaging, learning how to read like mega side imaging and all that good stuff. And that's a new world to me. But like now that I've got the fishing, my brother-in-law's both their boats a couple times with, they've got active target. And then I've been with people that got Panoptics and all this forward facing sonar that's out there now. But I was telling Luke when we were out fishing, every boat that I saw, you'd see everybody sitting there and just spinning this around looking for fish. And it's just like, so like, where do you stand with all that? I mean, do you think I feel like it's revolutionized and changed fishing forever until they
100%. Yeah. So I use the technology often. Like I said, I don't really use it for muskies at all. If I do have it down, I'm not sniping, as they call it. I'm watching baits come in. I'm seeing if we're getting follows like way out that we've never been able to see before, which you would be shocked at how many fish you don't see. And like that day I was just telling you about, actually I didn't have my sonar down, but a lot of times, your bait hits the water and the first couple cranks, one will like be right on it and then it'll disappear just as fast. And before we never knew that was happening. And with fishing, it's like every day is a new puzzle. And some days it's not. Some days it's the same patterns are working good. And but this year more than ever, it's like you got to go out there with a new book to write. And so for that, I love forward-facing sonar. I use it all the time for walleyes. I use it all the time for bass. But I refuse to let it be a crutch for me. I refuse to go fish and have to use it. I don't like being super committed to one thing. And but it's really changed fishing, and some for the good and some for the not good, I would say. This is another question that comes up quite a bit. It's a new chapter in fishing history that we've never seen before. And what it's doing is the one really good thing about it is it's bringing a lot of younger kids into the sport, because it's like as interactive as you can get. Fishing is hands-on in general, but
it's a video
like
game.
when you're seeing your bait falling and all of a sudden this fish is like, ooh, and then he doesn't bite. It's like, oh, that was interesting. Let me try this. Different color. Boom. Fire it out there. You might pop back up again, dive back down. You're like, okay, I'm going to try a different style bait. And then boom, bites it. You're like, cool. So I just learned something. It's a great learning tool. It's shocking how many fish are in a lake. Like just to look around and see the huge swarms of perch. And then, there's 50 walleyes sitting right there. And here's all three of your baits sitting right above them, and they're not biting it. Then you're like, we should probably not be using this. But where it's really changed is the muskie world and the tournament fishing world. As any TV coverage you've seen of major tournaments, like those guys are glued down to their billion screens up front. And, the thing is though, and the argument, I'm like right in the middle on it. I love it and I don't like it at the same time. But the thing is, like, you still got to make the fish bite. And so there's no bite button. You still got to know what you're doing. You got to know fish behavior. You got to know presentations for that lake or that time of year. So the guys who have gotten really good at forward-facing sonar they're really good. And they can tell the difference between a 28-inch walleye and a 25-inch walleye. And I can tell the difference between, like a 13-inch walleye and a 20-incher. They just show up different. And you can tell the difference between smallmouth and all that stuff. I spend a lot of time looking at it. But I don't consider myself really good at it. I only have one unit on my boat, and but I love what it does, but it needs to be used ethically. That is the biggest thing for any species. If you're beating the heck out of crappies on a lake and like catching them out of 35 feet of water, not all those fish are going to die, but some of them are. And so you just gotta be ethical with it, because you see them all the time. And so, and that can be a frustrating thing too. You're like, there's so many fish there. Look at all these dots, and they won't bite anything. And that's just when you got to tell yourself, like, that's not the school you're going to catch. Keep moving. So, but yeah, it's created a lot of people who I call them social media stars. They might have been average fisher before forward facing sonar came out, and now they can really target big fish and catch them frequently. And so, does that make you a better fisher? Like, I don't know where I stand on that, but I think it's cool.
I feel like it's
it's setting expectations too high, in my opinion. But
I think it's definitely changed the realm of, like, I just think of, like, you watch any YouTube personality that's out there now, doesn't matter if it's from down south or up north, and we have an absolute mecca of legends, within the Brainerd Lakes area of, just from a fishing community.
Yep.
And, Minnesota, we're very lucky to have a lot of people that just founded a lot of different things in the fishing world. But, now it's like, it's almost the standard now to where, you're watching a video how to go catch mid-June walleyes. And it's like, if you don't have forward-facing sonar, nothing relates anymore, where it isn't like you're applying these simple tactics you used to do. And now it's like, well, yeah, you're going to get up, you got your active target set up, and you're going to cast out to these, and you're going to fish this different style presentation. But to your point, where I think I'm in the middle too. And obviously I don't have anything. I've got the fish with it, but it's a learning tool to understand fish behavior that you never could see before.
Yeah, it's really cool to watch fish every day. And, like, I've always said they kind of do what you would expect. Like, tomorrow's going to be bright sun, low wind. Tomorrow's going to be tough fishing. Like, that's just how it is. And to be able to watch fish react to baits, and, like, where they're sitting in the water column, even some days let's say we have a huge boomer come through with lots of lightning, those fish are going to be like this, or sometimes they're like way high up in a really tight bunch, and those schools, a lot of times I'll just drive by. I'm like, they're not going to bite. So
I heard about that. In lightning, is that actually a thing where, like, thunder and lightning will subdue, like, fish, and they'll hug tight the bottom? Is that actually a thing?
It can be, for sure. The days I really don't like to see on the calendar are the high pressure days. Like tomorrow, we've had this cold front rolling in for a couple of days, and generally, like, when that front's showing up, rainy, cloudy days, that's good fishing. And tomorrow it's going to clear out. We're going to have high skies and sun. And so Leech specifically is, the water clarity this year is 21 feet. And 10 years ago, it was 8 feet.
Oh, wow.
So you take these fish who
just from the zebra mussels.
Yeah. Yep. And so you have these fish who forever, their lives have been able to kind of hide in this, not murky water. 8 feet's pretty clear, but a little more. So, these fish are adjusting just like we're adjusting to their behaviors. And the shallow spots that once you could literally troll over walleyes in 10 feet of water with a lindy or a jig straight over the side of the boat. I've seen this a million times. Your boat gets within 30 feet of them, and they start going, and they just go poof, and they're gone. You won't find them again. Yeah. And so forward-facing sonar specifically has allowed us, along with side scan. I use side scan a ton. That's probably my biggest tool I use. But that allows us to keep the boat away from fish and still know they're there. But now with forward-facing sonar as a complement to that, we can put it down, we can fish those fish, and I'd say about 50% of the time those fish have already moved by the time we get lines back there. So I'll be like, oh, it happened 3 times, 3 different spots today. We showed up, and there was the school that I set up on was gone. And I was like, oh, we don't want to fish where there's no fish. So yeah, the technology piece is always evolving, and it's always a hot point. But the biggest outlook I have on forward-facing sonar is that you need to use it ethically. And if you're doing it to snipe muskies, like, I'm not going to dog you for it, but do it right. Like, don't fish to those fish that are sitting in 30 feet of water, because everybody will say, oh, that fish kicked off fine. It's going to kick off fine and go die within 48 hours. That's what the science says. And, like, I've seen so many dead floaters on Leech the last 5-6 years. It's sad. We saw one just a few days ago. It was like a 50, had a big hook mark in its face, and it got caught deep and didn't make it. So but it all couples in with the social media stars and like, hey, look what I caught today. And they don't care how they caught it, and and they might care a little bit, but not enough to not make that cast. So we're hoping that education piece comes along, and just that ability to be able to pass on the wrong fish. It's like deer hunting, do you shoot that little spike buck, or do you say, nope, not this year, and let it grow up a couple of years and be a bigger one? So, and there's no rules against it. So whatever people want to do is whatever people want to do, but it's just ethics need to play a part. So
that's good. Yeah, and just kind of just switching just a little bit here. Just kind of maybe break us in just a little bit on, since we're coming into like the dog days of summer. Like, it's hot, it's August, as we kind of break into, September and Labor Day, things are going to start cooling down again.
Yep.
Just give us a little bit of local secret sauce of what it takes for guys to go out and catch, if that's bass, if it's walleyes, whatever advice you'd like to pour onto us that we can share with our viewers, just kind of coming into these dog days of summers, of what would be some successful tips to get out and fish.
Yeah, for the walleyes, this time of year is the one thing you can count on is fish being all over the place. Some are still shallow in the weeds. Shallow, I'm talking like 6 to 10 feet. The problem with those fish is the weeds are super thick anyways this year. They're harder to fish to. Even slip bobbers go into the weeds well, but there's sunfish, and, I always say sunfish are the best defensemen, because with forward-facing sonar, you can see the walleyes sitting there, and then the second that jig comes down, like a billion sunfish are just like, and then the jig's bare, and you're like, oh. But just being adaptable, like going out there with I'm going to catch them on this technique today. I'm going to catch them with the slip bobber and a leech, because that's what all the guides are doing. Being able to fish a jig wrap to, a school of maybe 10 fish that don't want to bite live bait, you might be able to pick one or two off at the jig wrap this time of year. I love fishing fast for walleyes and aggressive. So paddle tails, stuff like that. And the classics too, the Lindy rig and a red tail is hard to beat this time of year, especially as those fish push out of the weeds a little more. And the zebra mussel lakes, we're not seeing fish leave the weeds as much. And with that said, like, it's not a guarantee that they're going to be in the weeds. They might be out on the deep edge that day, but just having options and not being stuck on like one spot or one way to catch them is really helpful. And then having the ability to catch yourself and be like, oh, this isn't working. We need to change it up. But, the bass, the largemouth, are overall super happy, I would say, right now. That warm water has them really fired up. And my go-to this time of year, and a lot of the time of year, is a jig worm. Like, it's so, you and I talked about that last week, Evan.
Yep.
The jig worm is so easy to fish, and everything eats it. And so, you can fish it deep weed line, you can fish it up in the weeds, you can fish it right on the weed line. That's what saved our day on Gull the other day. Like, they would not bite live bait, and finally we switched it to Ned rigs and jig worms, and we caught a bunch of fish. So,
that's awesome.
But pretty soon the bass, and they are starting to do this too, the bigger bass especially will be pushing up into the thickest weeds. And that's where you're like pitching swim jigs and 50-pound braid. I love that bite so much. It's to throw the jig into a little weed pocket and just watch your line go boop and like crank down on it. It's 4-pounder is just super fun to me. And I call that jungle fishing. And, frogs, some frogs way up in the pads and the rice and the junk. Super fun way to fish. Not the best way to land all of your bites, but like who doesn't like watching a frog get smoked on the surface?
Just to explode.
It's super fun.
Oh, for sure.
And so that season's here. I mean, we've been catching them on frogs for a couple weeks now. And, but yeah, the bite generally gets a little tougher, like you said, and then we get those first kind of foggy mornings where it's cooler, maybe in the 40s, and that really kicks that water temperature down. And once that water temperature gets below 70, that's when things really start to turn on again, and it's go time. So September is one of my favorite months to be on the water, for sure. It's usually good fishing, and it's great weather. Usually it's sweatshirt weather and all that stuff. So
perfect. Yeah, no, that's awesome. Thank you for that. And do you feel like, as we get into these, like we were saying, just later in the summer now, especially for bass and for walleyes, they've had, I just think of like, especially the Brainerd Lakes area now, they've had a significant amount of pressure from people. Is that something where all of a sudden, like you said, it's just that one ticket item where you just got to keep trying things or throwing new things that maybe they haven't seen before?
Yeah, I like to look for spots that don't get fished heavy. That's why I'm always like, and some fishing guys get really comfortable with their spots, and it's called a milk run, I guess. And if I pull up to like two or three of my spots that have been good and they're not good that day, I'm throwing everything off the table and like we're going hunting.
Moving.
So we're looking at weird little inside turns, or maybe there's like thick weeds that come out just a little bit farther than the normal weeds, stuff like that. And a lot of times those spots get you bites because those fish are, I call them gas station spots. like they're not always going to be there, but they stop there for some reason at that time and you just found them. And so they're not super wise to a slip bobber on a jig sitting right in front of their face with the leech. They're not super wise to that jig wrap flying by their face. So finding those kind of off the beaten path spots this time of year can be really helpful. That's what I've been thriving on, especially on Leech right now. Leech is pretty busy, and like we said, not everybody has the technology to not scare the fish. And so you'll have boats busting up pods of there's some schools out here that are probably in the 300 to 500 range of fish. They're huge.
Wow.
And so you get boats going through those, and those fish break up and they scatter. So if there's a clump of boats here, I might be 200 yards that way fishing an offshoot of that school that wandered over here, and they're biting and they're not biting over there. So it's kind of that constant cat and mouse game of like, how close, do you get to the really good spots where there's tons of fish, or do you just go? I always choose off on my own. Like I don't like to fish by other boats this time of year because of that reason. Like fish have had a lot of lures come over their head, and finding those ones who aren't as wise is generally a good way to get them. So.
No, that's awesome. And, and just kind of before we close up shop here, Luke, I'll have you kind of close it out with I think it'd be kind of fun to go through our rapid fire questions. And I think I got a couple too, but before that though, can you just kind of maybe for anybody listening that is interested in booking a trip with you, can you just tell us a little bit like how they can get a hold of you or get a hold of Leisure, so they're making sure that, if someone wants to go ahead and get a trip through that, and we'll make sure we include all your kind of cliff notes in the episode here too.
Yeah, the best way now is to go to our website, leisureoutdooradventures.com. We have a calendar on there that you can book through there. It's been working well.
Nice.
We tried that a few years ago and it did not work so well. So that's probably the simplest. Yeah, that was a disaster. But this new system works quite well. I've had probably 8 or 9 trips this summer that have come just from the automatic booking off the website, and it works really
Awesome.
nice. You can pick your location and species and guide and all that stuff.
Wow.
And otherwise we do have a number on the website too, so there's always someone to answer the phone. But yeah, those are probably the best 2 ways to do it. So
sweet. Luke, you want to run with it? You got some good ones?
Yeah, let's do it.
I'm going to grab my phone charger quick. It was at 100%, and now it's telling me it's down.
We're all take a break. I got to take a piss anyway, so we'll cut it up.
I have an old iPhone, and it doesn't
hold a charge.
Yeah, it'll charge, but then it doesn't.
Oh yeah,
or it dies really fast. Let's see if we can fire this thing up. Chat. I think we're in.
Sweet. You got any hunting trips, or excuse me, hunting? I got hunting on the brain. Fishing trips this fall?
No. Oh, geez, Louise. Just to fish as much as possible. That's the beauty of this area. Like, there's so much stuff you can fish. So many different things to do. Okay. We're just going to do this for now. I do like to fly fish steelhead in Wisconsin. And that's not, well, it is kind of a fishing trip because it's 3 hours from home, but I haven't got to do that the last couple of falls, so I'd like to do that. But yeah, a lot of times it's just, did I lose you guys? Am I still here?
Yeah, yep. There we go.
Yep.
Okay. I thought I hit a button. But yeah.
Oh, we're good. No, you're good.
Fall is a busy time. So wherever I can go get a line wet is usually what I can do.
Nice. Sweet.
So kind of going with this. So we always like to, every once in a while, especially the guys that are always out and about moving around, we like to hit them with, a couple, 6 to 7 rapid fire questions.
Sure.
Just kind of getting the best, little things. So I'll let Luke run with this. So.
Yeah, I'll kick it off. My go-to. What's the early morning gas station snack and drink go-to?
Well, it's kind of funny because when I'm in teacher mode, I like coffee, but I cannot drink a bunch of caffeine. So my go-to drink in the morning is generally either a Diet Coke or a Mountain Dew Kickstart, which I love. And then a Cliff Bar. The double chocolate chip Cliff Bar is my go-to food. That's easy to grab. It's easy to take care of. Don't have to keep it cold. Just grab it whenever.
Nice. And then, so going off of that, I know we kind of talked a little bit before about like fishing trips and how busy your fall is, but what's that bucket list fishing trip that you still have yet to check off?
Big lake trout somewhere. I've caught lake trout in the mite pits over by Crosby, but they're not big. And
I might have to hire you to take me out there. I've been chasing them for 4 years and haven't caught a damn one.
It's interesting. We got skunked a lot more times than we've caught them out there, but like I want to go somewhere where there's like big ones, 35-inch plus ones, and chase those things.
Oh, yeah.
I haven't got to do that yet, so that's at the
open
top.
Water or hard water?
Hard water probably would be the most easiest, but if I could time when they move up shallow and get them casting, that would be the ultimate to me. So yeah, someday make that happen somewhere. I don't know where, I don't know when, but
well, yeah. So we just a little bit of technical issues there, but Tim, we just want to give you a huge thank you again for taking time out of your busy day and just for just kind of pouring some words of wisdom out here for all of us that, I inspired to hopefully be as avid as a fisherman as you are, because it just the passion that you have for fishing is incredible. And, I think it stems out for who you are as a person and just the experiences you get to have with people out guiding and stuff. So thank you so much for hopping on the podcast and just talking with us today.
Yeah. Thanks for having me. I love talking about fishing. So it's not too hard.
Easy peasy. Do you got a busy rest of the weekend or week, I should say?
Yeah, it's busy all the way through the end. So school starts here.
Oh yeah, soon.
Not very long. So
I bet you by the time this episode drops, it'll be school time.
Crazy.
Yeah, so it's always bittersweet. It's kind of nice to get back into the routine of regularly scheduled days, and my wife's a teacher too, so we're all on the same schedule, and that's okay. But I really I get the summer scaries. Like it's a marathon, and then you get to the end, and you're like, dang it, I wish it was still summer.
Right.
Yeah.
But
we just gotta get you in the bow hunting now, because like Luke and I we're like waiting for summer to get over. So.
Yeah. I know a lot of people that are in that same boat. They're like, I just want August to fast forward. I'm like, no.
Yeah. No, not yet.
But the one thing we can't control is time. So gotta enjoy it while we can.
Absolutely.
Well, thank you so much again, Tim, and hopefully we look forward to having you on the podcast again here in the future.
Yeah, thanks guys. I appreciate it.
Yep. Thanks, Tim.
Thank you.
Have a good one.
Thank you for joining us on this journey through faith and the great outdoors. We hope today's episode has inspired you to seek God's presence in the wilderness and deepen your connection with nature. If you enjoyed today's discussion, don't forget to like, follow, and subscribe to the Wild Faith Podcast on your favorite platforms, including Spotify, Apple Podcasts, YouTube, Instagram, and Facebook. By subscribing, you'll never miss an episode, and you'll continue to be a part of the Wild Faith Podcast community. We'd also love to hear from our listeners, so please don't hesitate to reach out with your questions, comments, or topic suggestions. You can connect with us on social media or through our website. Your feedback is important to us and helps us improve and tailor our content to better serve you. And always remember, the great outdoors isn't just a playground for hunting and fishing. It's a sanctuary for finding solace and spiritual renewal. As you gear up for that next adventure, I pray you find God's presence in the crackling of a campfire, the thrill of reeling in your catch, or the quiet solitude found in nature. Until next time, thank you for listening to the Wild Faith Podcast. Take care, and God bless.